What if the biggest airline changes hurting passengers right now aren't announced in press releases, aren't explained at the airport, and aren't even mentioned when you book your ticket, but quietly rolled out in ways most travelers won't notice until it's too late? That question hit me hard the last time I stood in a boarding line watching a family argue with a gate agent who looked tired, robotic almost, repeating policy like a script, while the passengers kept saying, "But this wasn't like this before." And that moment right there is where today's story begins. Because airlines aren't raising prices in loud, obvious ways anymore. They're doing something smarter, something quieter, something way more dangerous for regular travelers. They're changing the rules in silence. Inch by inch, update by update, screen by screen, until suddenly your seat costs more, your bag weighs less, your boarding group disappears, your refund becomes a credit with restrictions you never saw coming, and you're left wondering how flying became so complicated without anyone warning you. And see, this isn't about one airline or one country or one dramatic headline. It's about a pattern spreading across the entire industry. A slow redesign of air travel that shifts power away from passengers and locks it inside apps, algorithms, and fine print that almost no one reads. Like, for example, have you noticed how seat selection used to feel optional but now feels mandatory? Because airlines quietly reshuffled their cabins, shrinking standard legroom by fractions of an inch while rebranding the same physical seat as Preferred, Plus, or Comfort, even though nothing about it changed except the label and the price tag. And if you think I'm exaggerating, look closer the next time you book a flight and notice how the cheapest fare now forces you into the worst possible seat location, often auto-assigned at check-in, sometimes separating families, sometimes placing tall passengers into rows where knees press into plastic. And airlines will say it's about fairness or efficiency, but the truth is it's about nudging behavior, guiding you psychologically to pay extra without ever saying pay extra. Because the moment discomfort becomes the default, comfort becomes a product. And this logic doesn't stop at seats. It spreads everywhere. Carry-on rules, for example, used to be simple. A bag is a bag. Now it's dimensions down to the centimeter, weights that vary by route, fare type, and loyalty tier, and enforcement that depends on the mood of the gate agent and the load factor of the flight, meaning two people with identical bags on two different days can experience completely different outcomes. One boards peacefully, the other is forced to check their bag for a fee that feels invented on the spot, and airlines call this flexibility, but passengers experience it as chaos, unpredictable and stressful, which again quietly pushes people toward prepaid bundles and higher fares just to avoid embarrassment at the gate. And let's talk about boarding itself, because that's changed too. Airlines quietly expanded boarding groups, turning what used to be 4 or 5 groups into 8 or 9 or even more, making early boarding feel scarce and valuable, even though the plane boards the same way it always did, front to back. And the irony is painful because faster boarding doesn't actually make flights leave earlier, but the illusion of priority sells, and people buy it because no one wants to be last anymore. Not when overhead bin space has become a battlefield. And speaking of overhead bins, here's a change most people missed entirely. Airlines redesigned bin usage policies internally, meaning crew are now encouraged to close bins earlier once a perceived capacity threshold is reached, even if space still exists, because gate-checking bags improves turnaround metrics and on-time departure stats, which look great in quarterly reports, but terrible for the traveler whose bag ends up somewhere between Chicago and Dallas without explanation. And refunds, oh refunds. This is where things get really quiet and really messy. Airlines didn't just change refund policies. They redefined what a refund even means, because many fares now default to non-refundable, but what that actually translates to is not no refund. It's a credit, but not a simple one. A credit with expiration dates, usage restrictions, name locks, fare class limitations, and blackout periods that almost guarantee a percentage of credits will never be used. And unused credits are pure profit. And airlines know this. They track breakage rates the same way gift card companies do. And while they'll say they're giving passengers flexibility, the data shows a different story. one where millions in passenger value quietly expire unused every year. And then there's the app, the airline app that everyone downloads without thinking, because you need it now to check in, to board, to rebook, to complain. But what the app really does is change the power dynamic. Because once communication moves into the app, airlines can push notifications selectively, change options dynamically, and present choices in ways that favor them, like offering you a one-tap rebooking during a delay that looks helpful but locks you into a less favorable route or fare class without showing alternatives. And passengers click yes because they're tired, because it's late, because there's a line behind them. And the airline gets exactly what it wants. Frictionless compliance, and even customer service itself has been quietly redesigned. Phone lines reduced, chatbots expanded, human agents gated behind multiple steps, not because airlines hate customers, but because reducing friction for the company often means increasing friction for the passenger. And when complaints drop not because problems disappear, but because reporting them becomes exhausting, airlines can claim improvement while frustration grows silently. And loyalty programs, once the crown jewel of frequent flyers, have undergone some of the most dramatic silent changes of all. Miles quietly devalued, award charts removed, dynamic pricing introduced without warning, meaning the same flight that cost 25,000 miles last year might cost 47,000 today with no explanation. And airlines call this flexibility again. But travelers feel betrayed because loyalty used to mean predictability, and predictability is gone, replaced by opaque algorithms that reward spending more than flying more, which shifts loyalty away from actual travelers toward premium credit card holders, subtly changing who airlines value most. And all of this ties into one uncomfortable truth airlines rarely admit publicly. Modern air travel is no longer about moving people from point A to point B efficiently. It's about monetizing every moment of the journey, from booking to boarding to baggage claim. And the scariest part is how normalized this has become. Because when changes roll out slowly, people adapt without realizing what they've lost, like frogs in warming water. And by the time passengers push back, policies are already entrenched, systems already updated, contracts already rewritten. And airlines can shrug and say it's always been this way, even when it hasn't. And I've talked to travelers who swear they're imagining things, that flying feels worse but they can't point to one big change. And that's exactly the point, because no single change is dramatic enough to spark outrage. But together they reshape the entire experience, turning travel into a series of microtransactions, stress points, and invisible trade-offs. And if you think this ends here, it doesn't, because upcoming aircraft configurations prioritize density over comfort, AI-driven pricing models react to your browsing behavior in real time, and personalized fare offers mean two people sitting next to each other may have paid wildly different prices for the same seat with no way to know why. And airlines will keep saying these changes improve efficiency, sustainability, and choice, and maybe some of them do. But efficiency for whom, choice for whom, and sustainability at whose expense? Because passengers didn't agree to this shift consciously. It happened quietly, silently, behind updates and policy links no one clicks. And the real danger isn't higher prices or smaller seats. It's losing transparency. Because when you don't understand the rules, you can't play the game fairly. And that's why this matters, because awareness is the only leverage passengers still have. Noticing patterns, reading between lines, asking questions airlines hope you won't ask, and realizing that silence is not neutrality, it's strategy. And the next time something feels different when you fly, when something that used to be simple suddenly isn't, trust that feeling, because chances are another quiet change just rolled out, and you were never meant to notice until it already affected you.